a lot more. Ringo, I mentioned for starting all over. The captain heroes, perhaps we can get to see Lost Boy playing that Churn Walker. He's an incredibly playmaking captain player. Churn Walker is perfect for him.
I mean, Lost Boy Toff is renowned for saying that he wants to prove that captains can carry games. I'm a firm believer that they can. We'll see whether that's going to happen in this series. Catherine, going to be the first ban of this draft, and I'm curious to see where Tempo go with their first ban.
And looks like it is going to be Playboy Afro in for the side of TempoStorm in the captain role. At least for now. We'll see if that continues to be the case for them going forward. But with Hyde being in the jungle, that all of a sudden means this Kestrel could be a priority. We saw it come out earlier in Europe for I'm the Doom. Hyde is another one of those players that was exceptionally talented with the CP Kestrel, having teams banded away from him even when the Kestrel wasn't in the meta. So it could be something that we have to keep our eyes on for in this draft for TempoStorm.
Another thing that I mentioned is the Reza pick, obviously, for both of these teams. The thing that these teams need to keep in mind is if you want to pick up Reza, you have to be very careful about the Cruel counter pick coming out if you don't ban it, because Cruel is actually a great matchup into the Reza because both he can shut him down in dueling. Cruel comes out on top, and the fact that Cruel is a little bit tankier, so he can't get bursted down by Reza. The Ardent pick comes up for TempoStorm. Playboy Afro plays this hero actually very well. We've seen it in the past on the side of Hollywood Hammers. Now we're going to be seeing him play it against them.
Now, honestly, it feels like we've gone back to summer season right here with the Lyra and the Ardent basically every game coming on through. It feels very reminiscent of that. Blackfeather going to be the ban coming out from TempoStorm, something that's been incredibly strong. Although, to be honest, I feel like we haven't seen that much Blackfeather strength on the stream here today.
Also,
we all know.
Banned.
Exactly. It's been banned most of the games. When we have seen it, it's not really had that great effect, but we've all seen it in solo queue. We've all seen the power of this pick. Petal going to be taken away as well.
The Petal gets taken away, and to me, this is baiting the Reza pick because now if they go for it, they can easily take the Cruel and not have to worry about some sort of a weed flex. On top of that, if Reza doesn't get picked, they could probably pick it and feel confident enough to play it even against the Cruel because Status is that type of player who can feel confident enough.
Absolutely. Look at the kill participation from Gaspy right there. 97% almost. That is insanely high.
Yeah, unfortunately, you have to take it with a grain of salt. They haven't played that many games, and they haven't gotten that many kills. So, averaging 3 kills a game when you're getting 96 kill participation, if your team's only getting 4 kills in a game, that's, you take the good with the bad there. But they are going to lock in this Kestrel. There is the possibility this does end up being a weapon Kestrel in the lane, but I am really, really hoping that we get to see Hyde return to form with a Crystal Kestrel, because his Crystal Kestrel has been one of my favorite in the world. I enjoyed watching Hyde's Crystal Kestrel even more than I'm the Doom's, and that's saying something because I'm the Doom was phenomenal with it.
Indeed, I mean, it's a flex pick coming for the side of TempoStorm, and like I said, they don't end up taking the Reza. Status goes ahead and picks it up for himself. He's going to be playing so aggressive with this pick, especially after he picks up his Aftershock, just because he's such a confident player that likes to dominate the enemy jungler. The Vox also comes through, starting all over, plays this hero very well. TempoStorm, I like the fact that they've saved their last pick as a counter pick with the flex that's coming out from Kestrel. This is the strength of the B-side draft. You have to use that last pick to sort of try to get an advantage, at least either in the jungle or the lane, for one of your roles to allow them to play aggressive. The Cruel could come out, but they decide to go with the Samuel instead, and Hyde is going to be choosing to play the Samuel versus the Reza. I mean, if anyone is going to be able to know what to play against Reza, definitely going to be Hyde.
Yeah, and I mean, we have to mention that we've been talking about siege compositions across the course of today. Samuel and Kestrel is kind of the classic siege composition where you could just set up in that lane, incredibly difficult to get you out of that. And with an Ardent to shield away from trades and things, that looks like a pretty great siege composition to me.
Yeah, and with the fact that the Reza came through, I do like the decision to put the Kestrel into the lane. As much as I would have loved to have seen a Crystal Kestrel, the Reza can just burst her down so quickly from a long range away and can use the dashes and things like that to get into her face. It makes a lot of sense to put the Kestrel up into the lane. Samuel has a lot of durability when going up against the Reza, so it could actually be a very interesting matchup, especially at the level 2 mark for Samuel versus Reza.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, we'll have to see how this one's going to pan out. A lot is on the line in this matchup. It's time to jump into Hollywood Hammers going up against TempoStorm. Let us know on Twitter who you guys at home are wanting to see take this game. Hashtag Vainglory8 is how you can get involved in the conversation. Make sure to tell your friends to get involved on the stream as well. It's time, though, to jump on into this game. It's time to pass it over to our casters and head into series number 3 of North America here. Let's start off our final series of the day as we pass it over to Dowsy and the Source.
Thank you very much, Munchables, and I've got something to say, Source. I've been playing a lot of Reza. I've been, getting to know him inside and out, and I would like to challenge everything the analyst said about Reza. Basically, Reza destroys Samuel. It is a direct counter matchup into Samuel. Status will have a fun time in the jungle if Hyde is not careful and Playboy Afro isn't able to somehow keep Hyde alive because of the chase down ability that Reza has. It's just something Samuel can't deal with. Equally, Reza pretty good into open power Kestrel. Not as good as perhaps some other picks, but with some good coordination, Hammers are in for a great time to take down TempoStorm.
Now that the Reza rant is over, I completely agree on all points. I feel like Reza is a little too mobile for Samuel to deal with. Maybe there's that siege potential. Maybe you set things up really well. You get that lane dominance. You avoid letting Reza find those early to mid-game kills, and you can really make it an objective fight. But if they don't, if they play these, mid-area skirmishes, Reza gets that aftershock, and I say goodbye to Gaspy Hyde.
It's exactly that. The early game is what TempoStorm have to play around. In this early levels, they have so much sieging potential. Samuel is at his strongest right now against Reza in these pre-Aftershock levels. As soon as Status hits Aftershock, it completely gets flipped on his head. We haven't even started to touch on the fact that we're playing on 2.9.1 and the CP items have been completely changed. Samuel's build path is still up in the air. No one is certain what the best build path is on Samuel at the moment. And so when you put that into the topic, the conversation about TempoStorm's chances against what Hammers are currently showing, it just gets tougher and tougher for Hyde.
Yeah, I'm still partial to the Frostburn and still make use of that with the Maleficent Verdict. That core strategy behind the way you'd play Samuel and Kite is still there. But then past that, I don't know. I think the lull on the damage output from Samuel, maybe Dragon's Eye isn't necessarily the best choice. Maybe it gets picked off too quickly in status, but a nice... Did he get the steal on that?
He didn't get the steal. Hyde was able to secure it. If he got the steal, then this would be Hammers looking for a fight here. Instead, Hyde is able to secure it. He's going to move into lane. Actually stops the backport from Status. Oh, that's huge. TempoStorm can march into the enemy jungle now if they want to, or they can look for a fight. Status, well, he's just playing City Buggers right now. Hyde chasing under the turret. Can't quite find a kill, but a lot of damage has been outputted. Status looking to try and turn this one around, but the healing flask has been popped by Hyde for the healing. Status will be moved out of his own jungle as Hyde is just putting down the damage. This is what we were talking about. This is the best moment for Hyde to make use of Samuel's damage. Right now, while Status is weak, doesn't have items, he is vulnerable. He's currently in the enemy jungle. He's not even looking to steal the backs. He's just looking to escape and backport. He's locked all his camps, and this is kind of the win condition of TempoStorm. They're playing it perfectly. They are bullying this Reza in the early game and stopping him from getting a gold income into his system. If they can hold him down for a little bit longer, maybe Tempo can play around the Reza.
Yeah, Hyde is doing a good job of clearing out the camps very quickly. I like the play from Playboy Afro to just chase Status all over the map. That's just going to be more value for them. There is, I still think, we talked about the item build for Hyde. There's still kind of a lull. I don't know where Samuel gains that. Where he really gains his value. Yes, they can set up a siege, but that hasn't really been what Tempo's been interested in. There was a bit of a siege when they were kind of poking around the sides. That was still kind of kill-based. That was very much pressure-based. They haven't set up and grouped up to just kind of output massive damage. Hyde has those two major, crystal power pieces to build something significant. Maybe we still see the Frostburn. I'm not sure. Status.
I think Samuel is possibly the only hero that I would actually build Frostburn on at this point. Malice and Verdict has 2 portions to it, the Malice and the Verdict, and they both would proc 1 second of slow each. So the first one hitting would slow, the second one hitting would extend that slow a further second, basically resetting the timer on it. And once you get that Drifting Dark down, it's very quick, those Malice and Verdicts. They're up every second, so the slow is actually huge from Hyde, and so that's where the Frostburn is very effective for the Samuel still. But then you would need to build damage, you would need to build a lot of it as well. Probably go into an Eve Harvest second, then a Broken Myth, and then quite possibly a Dragon's Eye as your last item. Hyde's really going to have to prioritize 4 CP items, I think, if he wants to stay effective, because TempoStorm only win these teamfights if they batter Hammers early on in the team fight and basically prevent Hammers from engaging on top of them.
So, status, I actually don't think he's that far behind. I think he's done a good job of staying out of trouble. Here comes Tempo's, very, very strong siege. This should be the first turret going down. Nice bit of golden infliction on Status wants to fight.
Gonna move in. Doesn't quite land the Scorcher onto Hyde. It goes onto Playboy Afro, but there it is. Detonation goes out straight into Oblivion, putting him to sleep. Great usage there by Hyde. Shuts down Status in his entirety. Status does have the gold to go finish his Aftershock now, though. Hyde, with 1,300 gold in inventory, may even go towards one of the newer CP items, or even towards a Shadowglass. It's going to be very interesting to see where he does go, but this is where Status now has a lot of power available to him. The burst available via Scorcher, Firestarter, and Aftershock all alike. It's just very difficult to deal with. We'll have to see how confident Status is feeling now that item is online.
You should definitely feel confident enough to take the fights, but there's definitely some concern about how hard they can kind of engage. Without having the ultimate up for Lyra, Chicken can't set up that just initial jump into the backline, so there might still be space for Hyde to continue to scale up a little bit more before they have to deal with Status, Status really starting to hard engage these team fights.
Status, with that Firestar into Hyde, can jump on in and do so much burst. Look at that, Hyde starting to feel this counter that is the Reza right now. Playboy Afro has to be the body blocking machine. Stop these Scorchers from hitting Gatsby and Hyde. You can block them if you stand in front of your targets, and it is going to significantly hurt Status's damage output in a team fight. Really on Playboy Afro to make this team composition work against the Reza more than anything else. Very difficult task for him, especially now that he's replaced Lost Boy Top on the starting roster for TempoStorm. There's an Oblivion going out. It puts 2 to sleep. Starting all over's trapped. Status will sub on in. Never form detonation. He's got the stacks. 1 kill goes over to Status. And he will just disengage the turret aggro. They can move in and take this turret. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Hammers now take that down and bring the gold lead a little bit closer to even.
So before that kind of extended siege started, we mentioned that the gold for Hyde was at 1,300. He had the time to gain 700 more gold. They kept him there for so long. He never got to buy a significant item, never got that first item power spike. So just great from Hollywood Hammers to lay in the pressure while there was kind of, a damage trough for Hyde. He has now picked up the Frostburn. He has that additional heavy prism. He's gonna start to really do what he's supposed to do, but they exploited him during what was a great moment of weakness.
Now, for Status, you see him building towards a Dragon's Eye second, which seems to be very popular here in North America. Will mean that his damage output will increase. Reza does have fairly significantly low CP ratios, which means that even at 9 stacks, the Dragon's Eye isn't hugely as effective as perhaps on a Celeste, but it will mean that if he's able to keep those stacks available and up in team fights, then he is definitely going to do more burst damage with those Firestarter procs, so it's something to watch out for. Also maxing his A for the extra range. This is possibly one of the only compositions that I would argue maxing your A is good into, because of the fact that Tempo want to play so far away from yourselves. It's double mage, or it's double, I guess, it's artillery, you could argue. And so they want to play very far, this Kestrel and this Samuel. And so by maxing your Scorcher, your A, you get extended range and you can hit those Scorchers from quite a distance, meaning that Firestarter is ready to be procced. Otherwise, I think the argument, I always make the argument that VMAX is better. Wow, great Gauntlet taps up Status. He's going to go back in with an M-Form detonation. Blows up Hyde! He's just straight up dead! What is this damage? It's unreal from Reza. Yeah, Samuel doesn't do well into Reza at all, but they've taken down Starting All Over, which means that Hammers are back off here. Status and Chicken don't want to challenge Gatsby, who has actually opted in for double crit before a what is it called? Sorrow Blade. What do you think that's about?
Not entirely sure. There isn't a lot of armor, so maybe just the value on the crits is something he's interested in getting. Also, if you pick up the crit earlier, it means that you're going the spike in terms of value and damage. So as you add more damage in, you're just gonna get better value out of it every time you like continue to stack damage on more, instead of having to then build up the crit later and look for kind of a power spike. I'm assuming that's kind of what he's looking to do. Maybe he also just likes the look of 2 Tyrant's Monocles in his inventory. It's definitely up for debate. I want to say that it's gonna mean longer team fights are better for them, but it's hard to say until we see kind of a better position team fight for Tempo, because the last one, Hyde got bursted down, took a lot of damage, and he only really managed to come out of it because Starting All Over committed a little too far under the turret.
I do have to apologize, guys. I am from Europe. Well, I'm actually from Australia, but I live in Europe, which means and in Europe and Australia we pronounce US as status. I know it's status over there in the States, and that is his name. So I will wake up my tired brain and try and pronounce his name a little bit more correctly. That's a great engage coming out of Chicken. Now Status going to be looking to engage on top of Hyde. Look at the damage outputted onto Gatsby, deleted off the Halcyon Fold. And we've only Hyde and Playboy Afro left alive, and with the Lyra to heal up Hammers. Hammers going to continue the siege. Hyde is in trouble if Status can land a Scorcher on top of him. Currently Playboy Afro doing a great job of body blocking, making Status's life a little bit more difficult here. But there it is, it's connected. Does he go in is the question. No, he wants to heal him first. So he will be backing off for now. And looks like Hammers can't win this fight. Fountain will come out. They are just going to disengage here. Hammers just finding a single kill and bouncing away.
So Gatsby's definitely going for a sustained damage build, but that last fight didn't really matter. He got bursted completely by Status. He was removed from the fold pretty much instantly. The Dragon's Eye is there, so as the fight goes on, we'll definitely see, you know, a matching of that damage, but it is a breaking point going over to Gatsby, so the longer that team fight goes, if those breaking point stacks are up there, that's going to be a lot of attack speed. That's really kind of where the damage is coming from, and maybe an armor penetration item that comes afterwards for Gatsby, or he goes into that Sorrow Blade, you know, goes for that full damage. Won't be building a Tornado Trigger now, so not getting that kind of full attack speed crit build going. We've got the Eve of Harvest from Hyde, so it's really, you know, despite the changes in 2.9.1, it's still the same old Samuel. Hasn't really been able to be as effective as they wanted. They haven't sieged since probably about 4 minutes when they got that initial turret. So starting to feel like the pace is really in favor of Hollywood Hammers, and we'll see whether or not Status is able to pick up his broken myth in a timely fashion and really just drive home the point that nothing is safe for the side of Tempo.
All right, so you're from the States, so you have no excuse of mispronouncing.
I say Status and Status depending on the word. Like, depends on the sentence that I'm using it in. Like, it's Status if you're talking about like how something is doing, but it's Status when you're talking about effects.
All right, well, we're gonna have to focus up on the team fight. Status jumps into a Gauntlet, not the best positioning, but he is now looking for the re-engage. Oh no, they've lost Starting All Over. This has gone terribly for Hammers, and it is gonna be Gatsby charging on forward. A double kill for him. Nothing Status can do right now. He is low on energy. He has to disengage. Needs to get an Eve of Harvest into his inventory. Me feels he wants to be able to be effective here.
Crystal Sentry defeated.
Crystal Sentry eliminated by TempoStorm. Moving over towards the turret. They don't have a minion wave to deal with, but maybe they can just burst it down with the immense amount of crit Gatsby has. He's got on a breaking point. That is insane. That is the strangest Kestrel build I have ever seen. He's making it work though. That's the turret going down.
I want to know what his last damage item is going to be, because that's going to tell us whether or not this is a stand and deliver Kestrel, or whether or not it's, you know, kind of a kite and fight once the build is fully there. I hope that he comes, you know, his strategy is more about kiting, because that is
going very low. He's all right though. He is going to now move on back. All right. Resetting the fight, Hammers looking to try and siege this turret up. Going to be it falling down. Ooh, maybe not. Gaspy got spot out, and Status does have to fall back now. One shot, one kill. Chicken will tank it up. Hammers going to disengage. Apparently now I'm being informed that I'm just an idiot. And it is Status, not Status. I don't know what anymore. How do you pronounce router? Do you pronounce it router or rooter?
like...
Is it grass or grass? Is it bath or bath?
No, we're not having this debate right now. The English language is messed up enough as is, and we've got more than one kind of English, multiple dialects of English, multiple accents. It's just not worth it. But what is worth it is that...
Alright. Another engage comes out, Gaspy going very low. Never form detonation finds the kill, bursting down on Gaspy. It is now everyone spinning across the Halcyon Fold. Starting all over has been freed. He's got himself a double kill, but he is going to be sent... Oh no, never mind. I was thinking he was going to be sent back to Bates. A good reflex block going to eat up the last turret shot. And Hammers finally crack open the turret. Hammers able to finally get that objective down. They're slowly but surely whittling away TempoStorm.
Okay, so tension bow in for Gaspy. I was right, it is an armor-piercing item, but he just doesn't survive long enough for that to really matter. Still hasn't built up that additional shield, hasn't finished that reflex block and turned it into an Aegis, so Status is just cutting them apart. He's still doing that on 2 damage items, so it's getting more than enough value out of the Dragon's Eye. And because there hasn't been a lot of shield built, he actually doesn't need his Broken Myth just yet. You just see smart itemization from him. Nobody has decided to actually build the defenses necessary to deal with his damage output, and he's been kind of left to finish off a Metal Jacket, become basically impossible for Gaspy to be able to kill, at least in a reasonable time, especially with the amount of healing that's coming out from Chicken. And it's just a great amount of just kind of movement from the side of Hollywood Hammers. They're never giving TempoStorm either time to set up in siege or even time to kind of catch their breath.
Another fight breaking out here. Never form detonation on top of Gaspy. He's in trouble. Status looking for the kill, but he can't quite find it, turning his attention onto Hyde, but a great gauntlet will trap him on up. He's double stunned. He's in trouble. Playboy Afro making the big moves. Can he escape the Reza right now is the question. Here comes Gaspy and Hyde to provide the threat, and Chicken gets deleted. Throws out a fountain as his last ever move. One shot comes on through, starting all over now, looking to crit on up, trying to put the damage out. Look at Hyde deleted. Gaspy now stunning up Status, but Status charging on forward. Gaspy should die in just a second, you feel, but maybe the Crystal Sentry can block up the potential damage. As Status trying his best to find this Kestrel. No energy regen, not a great sign for Status. Gaspy running as fast as he can. Bought himself some journey boots as well so he can escape. Status pops some boots of his own. It is going to be a spot out. Oh, he's found him. Could be Gaspy falling down. You'd think, maybe not. Status will survive. And starting all over will find the ace. What a crazy chase around the Halcyon Fold.
Just high mobility out of this Reza. When Reza came out, I was super excited for just what his kit brings to a team fight, what he brings to skirmishing, what he brings to, you know, siege dive, and we're getting pretty much a full display of all of the capability you can do, especially now on this update where he's been buffed, the damage, the items are different for him. People are still trying to sort out how much value there is. Oh my god, goodbye Hyde.
Oh my goodness, deleted!
Valiant effort, but just at this point, Hollywood Hammers have complete control of the game. It's been a great attempt by Tempo to keep up in terms of items, but we still see no change in either Hyde or Gaspy's crystal power defenses. They have built no more shield. Like, that is just so quintessential that they are sitting on no shield with the 3-0-6 that is coming out from Status.
Oh, it's okay though. because Samuel does alright into Reza, so I'm told. It is just a hard counter, it's insane. I've beaten Tyras on Reza, on his Samuel, and I will hold that above his head for the rest of his life. Here comes the final engage. A Gauntlet trapping up 2, another one trapping up Status. Oh no, it's all gone wrong for Hammers. What a terrible dive onto the base. Starting all over, eats up the one shot. Now TempoStorm trying their best to take down this Kraken. They are going to look for stunning all over, but he has escaped, so they will turn face back towards the Kraken. And they will be able to take it down before it eliminates the last turret here. Starting all over is playing a game of chicken right now with Hyde. Hyde's willing to accept the challenge, has that Frostburn, but doesn't quite hit the Madison Verdict's slowdown starting. So it will be just this Kraken taken on down instead.
So a good defense from the side of Tempo. You can kind of set up that siege, that poke, that defense when you are being pressured in on your crystal turrets. So, you know, optimal position for them, but they've never been able to find that out within the rest of the map. They've just been constantly either jumped on or forced to have to retreat into bad positions. Somebody's dying too quickly for them to either pull back to their Crystal Sentry as a defensive point or far enough back to turrets. And even then, Status is willing to dive them on those turrets. And just, I can't iterate more how these items have been built out. Status has been sitting on a 2-item power spike pretty much all game, probably about the last 10 to 15 minutes, you know, more or less, somewhere in that range. And just now we're finally starting to see those defensive items come out from the side of Tempo. Consider if they had built that, you know, had rushed out those Aegis before that 3rd item, maybe they survive some of these team fights, they go a little bit more even, and Hammers can't just set such an insane pace.
Oh, look at this engage coming out of Hammers. Hyde trying to kite back. Status will lay down the Neverform detonator. Now he's going for even more. Everyone else is stuck in the Gauntlet. Status is in trouble. This gets taken off the Halcyon Fold. Hammers may have bit off more than they can chew. It's all on starting. Has he been freed or is he back to base dead? Great healing coming out of Chicken. It is going to be starting going for more. Gatsby trying to lay down the damage. Hyde on the other side. And they pin him down, take him out. Tempo turn the fight around. Problem with Reza is that often he's just too quick for his teammates to catch up here, Source. And when he can go through those gauntlets like nothing using his ultimate and the rest of his teammates are trapped in them, Status has just been isolating himself against Tempo.
Yeah, a combination of 2 things. One being a little bit ahead of the pace of the play. Yes, if you can put things together, run full throttle, and they have, great initial engage, but War Treads comes out, gives everybody, a huge boost of speed. Everybody backs up from the side of Tempo, and Gatsby survives. He's got some of that defense. He's got that reflex block. He manages to keep himself alive throughout that fight, and now they should be able to pick up this Kraken. Unless Reza shows up in time for a steal, I don't think Chicken can stall long enough. He might actually make it.
Oh my god, Chicken stole the Kraken! He is a god amongst men. Hammers. Pay that guy more. That is insane. And they've stopped the back ports on Hyde and Playboy Afro as well. Status, what can he do against this Samuel and this Arden? He's struggling just a little bit. Gatsby's there as well. Playboy Afro has made his way into the fight. Will they stun him? Yes, they do. Stunning takes a lot of damage, but Status is looking for the engage, looking to get on into the fight. Has to avoid that portal. They're looking to take down Playboy Afro. It's a grudge match between Starting and Playboy. You can see him. He wants the kill, but he doesn't quite get it. Playboy Afro survives, goes back in for seconds. Chicken in trouble. Playboy Afro just about survives. Gatsby moving on in to try and take down this box, but it doesn't matter. The Kraken is on the base and Status is there to lay down the damage. He may lose his life, but he's done enough work. The Kraken will be able to finish the job with just 2 more auto attacks. It is GG for Hollywood Hammers.
A little bit while longer to do it. The pace started to get slowed down a bit. They got pick after pick, and at the end of the day, it was pretty even. Items pretty even. It's just that Tempo couldn't really thrive throughout the map. They were very much condensed into small areas, and Hollywood Hammers put on a really good show.
Certainly did. Status able to shut down Hyde's ability during the mid-game that allowed Hammers to get ahead, and through some perhaps mispositioning from the Reza, it just would prove too much for Tempo to deal with in the end game. Hollywood Hammers will take game 1 of this series. Let's hear from our analysts to break down this game one.
We do have a Hammers victory for the first game, but it was definitely a close one between these two teams. Those last few fights were exceptionally scrappy, like to the point where you're really not sure who's quite going to be able to take it. And then we had a Kraken steal to round it all out. Really not what I was expecting coming on into this game. We wanted to see performances, and we absolutely did.
Yeah, almost an inexcusable Kraken steal at that point. I mean, you have so much burst damage with a Malice and Verdict, with even a Glimmer shot, a one-shot, one kill. Like, there's so many ways that you could secure that Kraken from a Lyra. It's a Lyra that stole this. You can't allow that to happen. And so that was a huge mistake by TempoStorm, just as they were starting to get a little bit of momentum back into this game, and that completely ruined it.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's take a look at our first replay. It's a double kill that came out for Tempo around the 13-minute mark in this game. This is how they started things off, getting a little bit of an advantage for themselves.
Tempo were able to execute on the fact, or capitalize on the fact that Lyra got pretty low from tanking that gold mine, and she was a little bit out of position on TempoStorm's side, and once Lyra backed away, there was no front line. Reza can't really tank too much, especially since he only had an Aftershock and a Dragon's Eye, and it ended up being Vox on the front line that took all the damage from Kestrel and ended up going down. That's how they won that team fight.
Absolutely, and then immediately the next replay is going the other way. This was an ace for Hammers that came out just beyond the 17-minute mark in the game, 17 and a half, and we can see Hammers turning this one around in a 2v3.
Yeah, and again, just finding members really low. It was both Hyde and Gaspy were rather low when this fight even started, and then they just chased them down, were able to finally secure this ace coming around the corner. It looked like Gaspy was going to get away. He was very, very close to actually being able to turn this around at the end too, but thankfully for the rest of Hammers, the entire team is able to collapse on him. It takes a while. He runs through this wild goose chase through the jungle, but right here, as he starts to recall, he realizes he has an opportunity. He almost takes Status down, but instead of doing one more basic attack, which may have been enough, he tries to throw out that Glimmer shot, doesn't connect, and it ends up with him falling instead.
All right, and then the rest of the game basically was just sat in the side of the base on the right-hand side of the map, just trying to defend, trying to stop the push. So we have a couple of fights that went on during that situation. It was Hammers trying to make this siege work out for themselves and trying to take more objectives off the back of the advantage that they managed to gain for themselves. And obviously we saw Kraken taken towards the end, but this was Hammers just trying to push without.
Generally in teamfights, the Lyra portals were really good, allowing the Reza or Status to close the gap onto Samuel and onto Kestrel. This one wasn't an example of that. They tried to force the engagement a little bit too hard, and they ended up being punished for it just because Tempo backed all the way to their base and they were able to kite away Reza. After they finished the kill, they tried to go on Vox, and they managed to finally secure the kill a few seconds later. When TempoStorm were able to kite away and try to sustain a little bit with the Samuel, Drifting Dark with the Samuel sustain that comes out of his kit, they were able to win the team fights. But when Hammers were able to just burst down someone, that's when they were able to take the team fights very decisively.
Yeah, and then we saw, unfortunately, Hammers managed to grab this steal onto the Kraken, and that set them up to end the game. We can see this Chicken coming up huge here for his team.
Yeah, just being so patient, hanging around. The members of Tempo aren't going in to try and kill him. That's one of the things, like, you should usually try and kill the target, especially if it's just the captain. Just get them low, force them away, force them to use their cooldowns. The only real great opportunity Lyra has to steal a Kraken is through the Sigil, and if you just turn on her, do a little bit of damage, all of a sudden she has to use the Sigil to keep herself alive. She can't use it to try and steal. So again, a slight misstep there for Tempo, but it ended up it took away all momentum that they had.
I mean, the Bulwark does such low damage in comparison to the Glimmer shots, to the auto attacks, to the abilities coming from Samuel. It was an incredibly well played by Chicken to use the Bulwark at the very last second to secure that Kraken. Afterwards, they pushed in. Tempo actually fought back and they were winning this team fight, but it doesn't matter. Kraken is so hard to take down now after he's captured just because of the buff he got. It's a 25% buff to his health. That's incredible. And that's why when he's able to push in, they can't, like, choosing between team fighting or killing him is now a lot harder.
Yeah, and now I think the answer is more often killing that Kraken, stopping it, pushing onto your base, because you can't just finish it off after the fight is done anymore, or at least it's less likely to work out for them. But that means we are now 1-0 in favor of the Hollywood Hammers. TempoStorm have their work cut out coming on into the rest of this series. Let's start to talk about the draft a little bit here. Obviously, we saw the Weapon Power Kestrel coming on in here. What are we expected to see coming into this next draft? How did things have to change for Tempo?
Well, I mean, first of all, I think they have to look towards this Reza pick, because I don't know if Hyde plays it. I really hope he does, because it feels like it's a hero that would be right up his alley. You know, the type of hero he likes to play. He was very strong on the glaive previously, and I feel like Reza fits that similar sort of niche of being like this aggressive, carry that can jump in and try and make plays happen. And it didn't really look like, early on at least, that Hyde was able to play against it all that efficiently. He was able to steal away a lot of jungle camps. He actually had a pretty decent lead early on, but when it came to the actual fighting, like actually skirmishing against their opponents, their positioning within those fights, they weren't able to kite it out as well as they would have liked.
Yeah, I mean, he does play it. He's played it in the past competitively with TempoStorm. I think last season actually in 2.8, but they did not prioritize picking him, and they did not choose picking him. Hammers bans Lyra after the TempoStorm Vox ban, and that's obviously targeted at starting all over.
Well, Catherine is going to be locked on in here for TempoStorm as their first pickup here. Catherine, something we've seen a fair bit across the course of today. It's not been the highest priority captain for most teams, but Tempo definitely wanted to lean on that.
Yeah, I'm a little bit surprised that it has been prioritized so heavily. The reason why Catherine was this must-pick ban hero in Update 2.8 was the fact that her heroic perk gave 2 stacks of armor and shield per stack of the perk. It is back down to only giving 1 in Update 2.9, so I'm a little bit curious as to why so many teams are still putting a heavy focus on her. She's been banned a whole lot. Obviously, yes, you still have the on-demand stun of Merciless Pursuit. You still have the AoE silence of the Blast Tremor, but just without having that perk, being able to have 2 stacks per, or 2 defense per stack, I just feel like her effectiveness has dropped off a fair bit.
I do disagree. I don't think that the fact or the reason that made her so strong was her tankiness with the heroic perk getting 2 stacks per stun. I think it was the fact that, and as it still is, when you pick up an Echo and a Lone Wave, her silence and her late game and team fighting becomes so strong. The Rhyme goes through, first time in a long time in these games, especially today, going to be on status. That's an extremely strong hero that can apply a lot of pressure, invade in the jungle, has an extremely strong clear speed, on top of very good last hitting potential to try and steal camps away from your team or from your opponent.
Not only that, but then it's going to be the Kestrel picked up by starting all over. So 2 very strong heroes for both of these carries. It means they are going to be having their captain as the last pick, so you're not going to have that hard counter pick, but I don't think you care about that. When you get 2 carries that are as strong as the Rhyme and the Kestrel, Baptiste was obviously banned to make sure that the Baptiste Catherine doesn't go over to the side of TempoStorm, but now they have to try and figure out some way to deal with this Rhyme and the Kestrel, and it is not an easy task.
I mean, their options are not too many here. They can either go for a ranged hero such as Kestrel or Samuel to deal with the Rhyme, or they can go for a Cruel to play that traditional matchup of 2 very strong early game heroes that can duel one another depending on who plays it better and depending on the skill matchup. So they're actually ran out of time there. This must be a bug with the draft client perhaps, so I'm sure this is going to get restarted and we're going to get to see what they ended up picking. Again, the Kestrel with the Rhyme, like you mentioned, Tasty Bacon, a very strong composition already being built up for Hammers just because of the fact that both of their carries are on heroes that can do a lot with their kits and can be very strong, and they're both very comfortable on them as well.
Yeah, one of the options I would like to see for TempoStorm would actually be a Sky coming out. I think Sky has a lot of potential against the Rhyme, being able to slow him down and keep him from being able to charge in on you the way Rhyme wants to. They are going to block in this Idris. That's a pick that can be very risky against a Kestrel in the lane, because Kestrel can just harass him all day with Glimmer Shots, and if you aren't sustaining with a Book of Eulogies and sometimes even then some, it's not going to be a pretty rough laning phase. It is going to be the Krull as the final pick, however, for TempoStorm. So, as you mentioned, Zoro, going for that more traditional type of draft against a Rhyme.
Yeah, and then Arden going to round out the composition for the side of Hammers. So, honestly, two fairly meta, fairly decent compositions for both of these teams. I don't feel like either one has a too significant advantage. What are your thoughts, Soren?
I mean, their advantages are just different in terms of different times in the game. Hammer's composition can be a lot stronger early game and mid game. They can apply more pressure, try to snowball, get a turret, get advantages in the jungle by invading, while TempoStorm's composition needs to scale, and Cruel can help them scale, but he's the only person that can fight back. CP Idris and Catherine both need time to be able to do a lot later on in team fights, so it's a matter of teams using their power spikes correctly in this game.
All right, we'll see who's going to be able to control their power spikes a little bit better on this one. I'm curious. Who do you guys, who are you leaning towards in this one? Obviously, Hammers 1-0 up in this series. Do we believe in TempoStorm? Can they come back into this one?
Unfortunately, I just don't think that they have what it takes with this composition that Hammers have. Rhyme and Kestrel are so strong, especially with starting all over having the Kestrel. I think it's going to be too much for them to overcome.
I agree.
All right, we'll see if that's going to be the case as we head on into this game. Let us know what you think as well on Twitter using that hashtag Vainglory8. Let us know whether you believe in the comeback for TempoStorm or if Hammers are going to get this one with a clean 2-0. It's time to jump on into the game, and it's time to pass it once again to Dowsy and the Source on the caster desk.
Thank you very much, Munchables. Starting all over, and Status even have secured themselves such a strong composition here. Kestrel, Rhyme, and an Arden to round it off. Hammers going to be feeling very happy with their drafting phase here on 2.9.1. We'll have to see how TempoStorm can do with theirs. This Idris, Cruel, and Catherine to combat what Hammers are currently playing with.
Yeah, it's going to be good opportunity for just early pressure out from starting. If he can set up the lanes, you're going to have the Kroll looking to find some of those ganks. There's a decent balance between what the two teams can do, and I like the fact that starting over here on this middle. Take that.
That was almost an auto attack steal from Playboy Afro. That would have been unreal. It's a nice little move that actually by starting. He gets him to level 2. Just about, I think, with the experience from those front camps, and should be pretty good at making sure that you don't have to fight Cruel at level 1 either. So definitely liking to see that we're seeing different rotations coming out of the teams based on who they're playing against.
Yeah, so good early opening for them. Gatsby has his minion candy, so the moment he starts to feel significant pressure, he'll be able to kind of deal with that. And now we see Hammers with a little bit more of that kind of solid sieging composition. It's a lot more balanced than it was in the last game. You know, Gatsby will be kind of at a little bit of a disadvantage until that crystal power kind of comes through. So, you know, I don't see starting being under that much pressure towards the early portion of the game. I'm not sure, you know, where Hyde is going to find that potential early pickoff, and I don't really think he wants to go fight the Rhyme. Status should be fine fighting him out in the jungle. So for now, I think we see both teams kind of leaving each other alone, at least for the next minute or so, while they kind of look to pick up an item or two, go for that first back.
Be very interesting to see what Gatsby decides to do as we see Hyde march Status back to his turrets here. Hyde can't actually kill the Rhyme. A little bit intrigued at what TempoStorm's endgame is here. In fact, it looks like Hyde might just be in trouble here. Status should be able to deal with this Cruel with the help of an Arden. It should just be First Blood going over to Status in the longest duel we've seen ever. That will be the First Blood, indeed, going to the Rhyme.
Yeah, so I said he didn't really want to fight him. He disagreed, and Status turned around and said, I'm just going to draw you under 2 turrets and pretty much cut you off from your team. There wasn't a real opportunity for Playboy Afro and Gatsby to show up and back up Hyde. So now the middle treant will be going over to Status. He'll be able to start doing some of what Ryan can do and coming in pressure. Although Hyde is back here, he's got Playboy Afro to back him up.
Certainly does. Cruel's very good, actually, into Rhyme, surprisingly. Just able to duel him in a 1v1 fairly well, just due to the fact that the weakness stacks cuts down all the damage that a Rhyme can output onto a Cruel. It was the chase that was unnecessary from Hyde. I'm sure he knows that it was a bit of an error. A little bit too bloodthirsty for that kill. Now Gatsby pushed under his turret, and there's a minion candy as well, making his life a misery. Gatsby struggles to clear the wave and starting over, just doing so much damage to it. Hyde has come to the lane. Chicken may just lose his life here. Starting all over, trying to lay down the damage. Just be careful he doesn't get re-engaged upon. Can't quite find the kill into his former teammate. Status is here as well. Hyde going in for second, starting all over. Lays down the charm, kills Hyde and says, see ya later, pal. Dunning's been freed and he's ready to show up on the fold.
Yeah, looked like that was a good initial play. Gatsby had gotten a bunch of damage on the starting off of one chakram, but step under a turret towards the early portion of the game when all you've really got is a couple of defenses, a little bit of damage. Bull isn't going to survive that long. It's the first turret going over to the side of the Hollywood Hammers, and they will be able to now send starting back and continue regen up. But he seems pretty confident just whipping shots over at Gatsby. He actually doesn't even want to back. He's like, nah, I can stay long.
I just love the fact that during all of that, starting all over, the mechanical god that he is on Kestrel had time to open up his emotes menu and pop a charm just to taunt Hyde before his inevitable death. That's pretty BM. That's what we love about starting all over, is moments like this. Currently though, it is a great start for Hammers. We see Status has opted in for the Shadowglass first item. A bit of a debate about what you might build first on a Rhyme with Dragon's Eye now here. If the fights last long enough, then Dragon's Eye certainly does better than Shadowglass, but a lot of pros love the initial burst damage that the Winter Spire does, and now with Winter Spire being nerfed as well, the Shadowglass probably going to see more favor on Rhyme. I'm still disappointed that we haven't quite had a Dragon's Eye be accepted into the pro community yet as a first item Idris purchase. We do see Gatsby once more sticking to the Shadowglass. And maybe actually in this matchup, it's even worse than the previous one with Gangstar's up against Nova because of Kestrel's taking damage. It's unreal. CD Idris actually struggles to deal with it.
Second item, we can only hope. But the moment it's Hollywood Hammers looking to get a little bit of engagement, Status goes forward. Off the sprint, doesn't manage to connect.
It is going to be Hyde just chilling in a bush right now. For the flank, Status going to walk into it. Here he comes. He's trying to get onto starting all over. Stuns up the Rhyme. That's a great chakra play. But starting all over still alive. The kill goes over to the Rhyme. Status with 2 of his own. Unreal stuff. TempoStorm have just been dropped where they stand.
An amazing stun. All of that kind of gets set up by the active camo stun from starting all over, and starting all over's running around at basically no mana, basically no health, is just confident that his team is going to be there to back him up whenever he gets into trouble, and they show up at the perfect timing. You get a Valkyrie on top of 2, and it takes Hyde out of the picture pretty much instantly. And if this continues, we're going to see starting all over getting to that Sorrow Blade massive crit build, very, very quickly. If that comes through by, like the 15-minute mark and he's starting to crit through targets, Hyde won't have picked up enough damage to be able to actually pressure him, or he'll either not pick up enough, defenses to survive him.
Currently, Hammers are just destroying TempoStorm. It is a 4,000 gold lead right now. Nothing like the previous game where it was definitely a lead for Hammers, but it just didn't feel anywhere near as decisive as this. I suspect 2.9 that Rhyme Kestrel becomes the Covenant composition, and you compare it with whatever captain you want. Arden probably best, but man, it's just insane. Charen Walker, why not?
Charen Walker.
This gold miner, a little bit risky. Hammers are trying to draw it back towards them. Here comes From Hell's Heart. Connects onto no one. It's a smite wall. A smite wall that the Kestrel wins. Oh dear, Hyde. What are you doing? That's going to be the gauntlet being placed on down. Starting all over to try and take down Hyde by himself. Success. Status now looking for Gatsby, who can't really kite the Rhyme. Status pops his boots, runs onto Gatsby and kills him. That just leaves Playboy Afro currently walking around the Halcyon Fold, trying to outrun starting all over. It has a one-shot available. I don't think it does enough damage on the weapon power format, but Playboy Afro will be able to escape. Hammers once more just showing that they are the premier of the two teams in this matchup.
Solid victorious team fight. either a mistimed smite, either he just wasn't there, and then a Valkyrie dropped from the sky and pretty much obliterated the double melee composition from the side of Tempo. They had pretty much everybody stacked on top. They were trying to get that, and they almost baited themselves in because they could have let that gold miner reset. They could have left that alone and looked for just kind of a clean team fight. But when you fight around something like a gold miner, you always have to be worried that you might aggro it, take a little bit of damage, be slowed. You know, you're looking for the steal when somebody else is actually doing damage to you, or vice versa. You're out putting damage on the tank and the steal comes. So, you know, just pretty much everything fell apart for Tempo. You know, because starting all over, just dishing out massive damage, and Hyde isn't really there for the pressure. They used the From Hell's Heart very early. You know, I think he was looking to possibly bait out the Gauntlet, but it didn't come through.
Right now, Gaspy's struggling heavily in this matchup. Behind the gold on a Crystal Power Idris. It's not a place you want to be. Has just finished his alternating current. Now likely going towards the Broken Myth as his third item. Does get a bit of gold from Hyde, but he has to roam back into the lane. Starting Home is threatening on this Kestrel. He's almost completed his third tier 3 item, which will be another monocle for himself here. I much prefer this build, by the way, for Kestrel. I know Truth has kind of popularized a breakpoint build. We'll talk about it in a second as another engage comes out. Everyone's silenced. It is currently Chicken taking the brunt of the damage. He's happy to do so on this item. Now look at the damage coming out. Gauntlet gets placed on down. Valkyrie onto Playboy Afro's head. Gaspy struggling to get onto Starting. Starting is able to walk away. Finds one. That's two. That's three for the Rhine. Easy peasy lemon squeezy says status. And it's a choke point turret for Hammers.
Because the siege from Hammers wasn't good enough. They needed an ace to just continue to pressure this forward. They could probably take at least one crystal turret here. I don't think they go for both. I don't think they even go for end. No, they're thinking about it.
It's Hammers. Hammers love ending games early.
They actually have a
There's one thing they love more than anything else. It's annihilating their opponent. Starting all over. He has to play like a god, but they've taken down Hyde. This could just be the end of it all. At 11 minutes into the game, there's an ace buff minion wave still pushing on in. There's turrets to be taken. Starting all over, critting it away. Turret goes down. 11 minutes at the game. Hammers are going to put TempoStorm out of their misery and delete them from day one in spectacular fashion.
Starting all over is back, ladies and gentlemen, beware. That's all I have to say about that. Double Chill Wind was a great setup over those fights. Status got 2 massive Chill Winds onto 3 people, getting great roots, and starting all over just ran circles around the side of Tempo.
Absolutely insane. From Hammers here on the Halcyon Fold. Once more showing us that they can end games in spectacularly quick fashion. TempoStorm will be walking away with their tails between their legs. Hammers to join the rest of North America on day 2. And that will finish it up for us here, Source. So let's throw it back to Munchables to bring it to an end.
Thank you very much, guys. What a game coming out from Hammers there. We had 30-minute games across the course of today. We've had some incredibly long ones, and then Hammers, after a close game 1, just absolutely rolled over game number 2. That was, what, 11 minutes total? That's one of the fastest games, not only of this season. If you include last season as well, it's still one of the fastest.
It's getting close to bedtime, so they got to go.
They're done.
At least on the East Coast. So it's time to close up shop and get things squared away. But that was incredibly impressive, and I mean, Hammers looking so much stronger. This is what we were talking about. We've talked about it multiple times today. When you're playing against a lower-tiered team, if you want to have any sort of chance against the top 3-4 teams in the league, you need to dominate them, and that is exactly what Hammers did in this game.
Definitely. I mean, and Hammers getting this draft with the Kestrel and the Rhyme allowed them to be able to dominate TempoStorm, show up amazingly, and Kestrel is such a strong lane-pushing, sieging, turrets-taking hero that they just were able to take 2 turrets 8 minutes into the game, and that's how they were able to close out the game so early on.
Honestly, you sounded like you were trying to sell me the composition at that point. Let's take a look at the first replay. It was around 6 minutes into the game. This was a double kill that came out from this side of the Hammers.
It feels so wrong to look at this piece 6 minutes and say this was the halfway point of this game, but it was. I mean, the Hammers able to find these huge leads. There was never an opportunity for this Krull to get onto the, any sort of momentum in here. It was just very, very dominant and very strong showing.
And the Rhyme pick also showing up huge for Status. He was able to take over the jungle for the most part, at least for the front comps, over Hyde. I mean, they picked Cruel. this game against the Rhyme when it's not the best matchup. They didn't pick it last game when they had a much better matchup against Reza. So Hyde and TempoStorm, their drafts definitely hurting them a little bit, and I think that, to me, is a big reason to why they lost this series against Hammers.
Yeah, unfortunate for them. That was an unrelenting victory for Hammers, though. We can take a look at the next replay. Around 8 minutes into the game, another double kill coming through for them.
This was when Nova, or TempoStorm, sorry, tried to secure a gold mine, but it ended up backfiring. Not only Hammers were able to steal that gold mine, but they were able to get one kill and then another on Idris later on. It was just a great capitalization from Hammers on the fact that TempoStorm were trying to go for something risky because they were starting to feel a little desperate. They had to lose 2 turrets at that point. They thought they had an opportunity that they could gain a little bit of gold from and get back into the game. It wasn't the case. Hammers shut them down before they were able to make it.
Yeah, it didn't quite work out. And like, had they got that gold mine, it's like a silver lining to the situation. But because it was also stolen, it's like, ugh, that's a painful scenario if you're the losing team on that trade. But then we can take a look at the end of the game, how Hammers finished things out, because they basically just won 2 team fights back to back without ever having to head to base or anything. And I was surprised at how far down the map they were actually fighting.
Yeah, and you can see Chicken just